Welcome to the show, folks. This is Wrestling Changed My Life. Here we go.
Something that Coach Hall always, he has it plastered everywhere around our, the Davison program. He had it on shirts. He had it on everything. And if you know anything about the program, it was that hard-nosed, very physical guys. That was kind of the philosophy behind the program. But his stain was never settle break somebody.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
If I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if they gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. My guest today is Jon Reader, Associate Head Coach of the Wisconsin Badgers. This is Jon's second time on the show, and we go back in time and talk about Jon's high school career at the great Davison, Michigan, where he was teammates with Brett Metcalf and Paul Donahoe, all three of which were NCAA champions. Fan of the week goes to Matthew Ryan. That's Matthew RY3N on the gram. Thank you for tuning in, Matthew. Greatly appreciated. Folks, this episode is brought to you by the Beat the Street Chicago Virtual Gala. So instead of our annual gala, which is a huge fundraiser for us, we're doing a virtual gala on Saturday, June 6th from 8 to 9 p.m. That's Saturday, June 6th from 8 to 9 p.m. It would mean the world to me if you would please register for this event and attend. No donation necessary. It's free to attend. Go to WrestlingChangeMyLife.com and click on the Beat the Street Chicago Virtual Gala tab on the homepage. You can't miss it. WrestlingChangeMyLife.com. You'll see the link to register. Register. That's all I'm asking. Let's get to the show with the great Jon Reader. Second time on the show, man. Welcome back.
Running it back. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited for this one. I want to start with a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I love hearing about people's daily routines, and you are a very motivated guy. What's your day look like for Jon Reader during this Corona pandemic here?
Well, that was the first thing, was finding my routine. I've been such a creature of habit daily. So first thing was getting my routine. Usually I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm getting a cup of coffee, and then first thing first is my 5-mile run, and then I come back, start working on some emails. Good thing is I got my kids here too, and I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So trying to stick to a routine is a little bit difficult. But certainly I'm getting my 2 workouts in a day. It's just a matter of where I'm squeezing them in.
You're still getting the 2 a day in?
2 a day. So it's usually before they're up and on nap time.
Wow. What's the second one look like?
So it's usually, we have a strength and conditioning coach who's sending out kind of, at home full body workouts. It's just trying to get creative in my basement and torture myself a little bit.
And for the folks who are listening who don't have a gym or the resources, give us a couple exercises off the full body workout.
You got your typical burpees, you got your pull-ups, you got, things like that, weighted step-ups, things, just getting creative and making yourself, making sure you're staying active.
Man, and during these times, routine is more important than ever, and it's like a broken record to say that. But first couple of weeks, it was weird, but, now I'm back to the swing of things, and, I don't get the 5-mile run, I get a kettlebell in. But have you been doing the 5-mile run for a long time? Is that your staple?
I've been doing it every day since we've been on quarantine, and actually a couple of days I got a little froggy and I went 12 miles, and I paid for it because I've never went that far before. So I paid for it, but it was, the next day I was trying to figure out ways to challenge myself. So I have a pretty nice road bike too. So I went and, one day I just rode 56 miles just to do it. So, it's just getting creative during this time and figuring out ways to challenge myself. And, luckily I'm doing things I really don't do. Usually I'm on the mat for the majority of the time.
Right. What about Coach Bono? Is he getting those runs in as well?
It's great. So I'm on phone calls with him 6-7 hours a day. And, it's funny to hear how he's doing it. He's doing the same thing. He's running, he's putting on his sweats and getting his runs in. But actually, it's a funny story. I was talking to some other people in our athletic department, and somebody lives closer to him. And I got a text message yesterday, and she said, "This is the greatest sight. Every day I see Coach Bono running down our street, full sweats, big headphones, and it just makes her day." So it was fun. It was funny to get that text message.
I can see him with the all cottons, the sweatshirt tucked into the pants. You know how it is.
That's right.
Man. So you said you're on the phone with him 6-7 hours a day. Not to give away any trade secrets, but what does a D1 program work on in times like this? What are you guys ironing out?
It's just getting creative and figuring out how to ways to connect to our recruits, to our commits, and then most importantly, our guys, right? Making sure that they're being heard and taken care of, and then making sure that we're staying in constant contact with our support staff, and from our nutritionists to strength coaches to our advisors. It seems like we're constantly on the phone, and you've got to stay up to it. So recruiting never stops, and then trying to put together virtual tours and making sure that these guys are able to see the University of Wisconsin even though they're not here.
So you're still recruiting right now?
Oh, 100%. It doesn't stop. Even though we got an NCAA ban of not being able to, leave campus or have kids on campus till June 1st currently, it doesn't stop, right? So we've gotten creative with our athletic department. They put together virtual tours, what it looks like in Madison, what it looks like to be a student athlete, everything that the university has to offer for student athletes. So it's been great being able to navigate through these times with these kids. And then obviously the Zoom calls have been amazing for us, just because it's very easy for us to get in the car, drive as long as it takes to get to a kid's house, and be having an intimate conversation at a dinner table. And that's really where we enjoy doing our conversations like that. So not being able to do it, this is the next best thing.
Yeah. No, I'm in outside sales for my day job, and obviously there's nothing better than facing the place.
Right.
We always say it's a combat sport. You got to get in there and see people, but
absolutely,
this is the next best thing. You got to roll with the punches. What are you hearing in terms of and there's a lot of rumors out there, but anything in terms of a makeup for the national title this year, whether it's beginning of next season or anything at all for the seniors who lost that chance this year?
No, I haven't heard anything, as far as makeup. I think that, I think a lot of folks, especially our people here, have gotten to the point where, listen, it is what it is, man. It's time to move on. It's time to make sure that our student athletes and, our staff and, the community and the nation as a whole is healthy, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that we've got to make sure is happening. So we're over it. We're on to the next thing. And I think this is just a great life lesson for those seniors. It's just an opportunity for them to swallow this, let it be a part of their journey. And, it's up to them to make the decision on how they handle it moving forward.
Yeah. How you respond to those events is everything. That's all you can do is control how you react to external events, because you can't control how they happen to you.
Absolutely.
Man. So that's exciting. So June 1st right now is the time when folks they're saying you might be able to get back on campus?
Yeah. So they're saying June 1st as far as being able to leave campus to recruit or to have kids on campus. Now, with that being said, our university shut down until August. So we can't have kids we can't be on campus. So obviously things are changing daily, even hourly. So it's just making sure that we're in constant contact with our administration and just having full trust in them and supporting them in which direction they go. And that's what we're going to do, that whatever they decide, and, they're going to put our safety at the forefront and just making sure that we support them. And we've got great administration, and they're first class, and they're going to do a great job.
Yeah. Well, you think about, I just had Iowa football offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz on the other day, and he was talking about how, like, football preseason, that's right around the corner, man. So those guys are really impacted, and they're drop shipping kettlebells to like 60 kids, like they're sitting across the country.
It is, and it's actually unique too. We're doing the same thing here. Our strength and conditioning coach, he's sending kettlebells, plates, bands, dumbbells to our kids just to make sure that they're not leaving their houses and putting others in danger, and especially themselves. But it just shows the magnitude of how important student athlete welfare and what our student athletes, how they're taken care of here at Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I know the last time we spoke, man, I think it was last summer, maybe. It was last summer. So the season obviously hadn't started yet, and this was a big one for you guys. You had Gross was obviously the leader, but you had some really solid guys, Tristan Moran. Talk to me about the season a little bit and what your thoughts were going in. Like, if this was the week before the Nationals, how were you feeling about things going into it?
It was you know what? I think we had a great tournament team. Not necessarily, we did some special things as a team, dual meet wise, but it was difficult, right? We had, if you look on paper, we had about 5 hammers and, guys that, winning percentage, the majority of the time they were going to win, right? So It was those other 5 guys that, we depended a lot on them to pick up some extra wins, on the way. So dual meet wise, I think we finished 11-6 or somewhere along there. But from a tournament standpoint, we had guys that could score points and could get deep. And we truly believed that, we were coming home with 6 All-Americans at the NCAA tournament. And we believed that we had enough firepower to make a run at it, at a team trophy.
The 6 All-Americans would have put you guys darn close, I got to think.
I think so too. And I think that we had guys, we had them geared up. We had them healthy. We were the healthiest we've ever been in the season. And we were ready to go.
I just had Coach Hahn on from South Dakota State. Obviously, where you and Coach Bono built a program and just left there. How do you compare and contrast the two environments? Obviously, both are focused on winning, but you're in the Big Ten now. Wisconsin's cream of the crop. Has there been any difference in your daily cadence or how you approach the season?
No, not at all. Just, from a magnitude of the universities, it's a completely different, world as far as resources and, it's just a completely different, environment. But from a standpoint of our mentality of how we approach season, it was the same. It was that blue collar, that hustle, effort, and attitude is what we preach at South Dakota State. And it's the same thing we preach here at Wisconsin. And we believe in our core values and making sure that our guys are controlling those areas in every aspect of their life, whether it be, academically, socially, athletically. And so from a mentality standpoint, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah. No, it's cool to see what you guys have built and that you're doing it now at the big stage. And obviously the stronger the Big Ten can be, the better. I wanted to go back in time a little bit, ask you about your Davidson team is it Davidson or Davison?
Davison.
Yep. So I had a little conversation going with a couple of my buddies saying, what high school team has ever had 6 national champs? Because there's a team from Chicago, Mount Carmel. In 1993, they had Joe Williams as a senior, TJ Williams as a freshman, and Tony Davis as a freshman. And those 3 had 6 national titles, right? And so I go, has any other high school team ever topped that? I don't even think Blair could top that. Maybe that 2000 team, but I don't think they even had that. Because Esposito had 1, Mako had 2, Perry had 2, unless someone else had another one. So, I mean, that's how ridiculous that stat is. But you guys were pretty close, right? How many did you guys end up with, your high school team?
So I believe Metcalf had 2, Donahoe had 1, I had 1. So just between those 3 guys, there was 4 titles there. But that doesn't speak volumes of, doesn't even come close to the amount of talent that we had in that room that not necessarily, developed to that level in college, but we're just hammers and guys that they were a big reason why I progressed in high school, and guys I idolized and they were my mentors. And I truly believe that those were the guys that I had my aha moment, really. The classes above me, and just as a young kid being able to come into the Davison room and sit there and watch how these guys train and just watch the intensity. And it was something that it motivated me. It inspired me, and it made me want to be. It made me want to be like those guys, and then especially watching those guys transition into the collegiate side of things and have success. I said, listen, if I just follow this model, I'm gonna have great success. So, luckily, on top of that, we had 2 Division I, former Division I athletes that were our high school coaches. That they didn't train us. They didn't train us like just an average high school team. We trained like a Division I team. I mean, it was structured, disciplined, intense. So our transition to college was pretty seamless in that standpoint.
And who were some of the guys, because you make such a great point. I mean, to win a national title is such a ridiculous feat, and it's almost unfair to the other guys to hold it to that standard. Who were some of the other guys when you were like in middle school who you really looked up to, or even when you were in high school who you looked up to?
Well, I think it was, you had guys like Chase Metcalf, who was Brent's older brother, who was just a phenomenal athlete in himself. Casey Streeter, my brother was a couple of years older than me. Those were guys that he was hanging around, and I attached myself to my brother's hip. So it was always, I wanted to be like my big brother, and the guys that he was hanging around were guys that were having a lot of success, at that level, and they were 4 or 5 years older than me. So, my eyes were wide open, and I wanted to be like those guys. And the majority of those guys, 90% of them went on to college, whether it be Eastern Michigan, local Division I programs within the state, Michigan State, all great programs. And they went on to do great things. And those were the guys I looked up to. And, and great part about my high school coaches, anytime that any of our guys that were former Davison guys, they put their pictures on our walls and when they were in magazines. So every day there was hundreds of pictures on our high school wall in our wrestling room of our guys, having success, whether it be Fargo or whether it be, their collegiate career. So I saw that and I was motivated daily, and it was a lot of fun. I was very, very fortunate and grateful for that, to go to Davison.
It's crazy how a good culture, really started by good coaches most of the time, can impact kids' lives forever. I'm doing a documentary on the 2014 Oak Park River Forest team where they had 4 state champs, Isaiah White, Kamal Bay, that crew. I mean, they were nationally number 2. But the coach, Mike Powell, just built a program out of nothing. It kind of reminds me of what you're talking about, where the practices were at a level that were so high that when they got to college, they could roll right into it. When you guys were in 8th grade in high school, what was your off-season program like for some of the kids who may be listening now, wondering kind of how you guys did it?
Well, my off-season, I had the opportunity to play multiple sports. I just wasn't, it just wasn't my path, right? I played a little bit of football. I played a little bit of baseball growing up, but my summers, when I got to my 8th grade year, I got real serious with wrestling. And I was fortunate enough to have Coach Hall as my middle school PE teacher. So I had him from, all through middle school, all through high school. So I was being mentored daily from him. He was always checking in on me. And my summer schedule was the second the junior high season was done, or whether it was high school, it was right into the freestyle and Greco. And it was get as many matches as I possibly could and just learn how to win, right? It was learning how to win and continue to get better. And our coaches, they believe heavily on that summer wrestling.
And so it was a couple times a week minimum, and every weekend you could just wrestling.
And not only that, in our Davison room, something that within our, geographic area, we had a lot of different, coaches in our areas, whether it be the DeGane brothers that used to be at Clarkson. Those guys went on to wrestle at Michigan, and I think one of them wrestled at Citadel. And then we had, Kevin Beasley's dad, he was coaching at Montrose High School, and these guys, they brought in the best from around the state. So whether it was at Davison or whether it was at Montrose, whether it was at any school, I was driving there to get the best partners. It didn't matter where it was, and I was fortunate enough to have parents that made that happen. Whether they were getting in a car and driving me there, or they were coordinating who was going to take us there.
Would you say your pops was more of a coach or a dad?
He was a Division I athlete himself, so he kind of understood that side of things. He played football at Indiana State, and so he understood the discipline and the commitment it took, and the level of just commitment it took from a daily, to get where you needed to be from a wrestling side of things. He wrestled in high school. He didn't wrestle in college, obviously. But he just, I think he was a supporter, right? At the end of the day, he was a supporter, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity he gave to me. And now having kids and looking back on the opportunities he gave me, that's it's priceless, right? And that's something I hope I'm fortunate enough to give to my kids, is give them as many opportunities as I can. He was just a selfless parent. Him and my mother, they were selfless parents that, their children, they came before their own goals. So they always put us at the forefront.
Well, the reason I asked was I was looking at some of the young studs right now, the Spencer Lees, the Dayton Fix, the Yannis, and you're like, all those guys had dads who were like RTC level coaches. And I'm thinking, is that what you need now to be good? Because I hope not, because that's kind of, if you don't have that, you're kind of screwed, No. But I don't think you need that. But at the same time, all those guys had that,
Yeah, my dad wasn't an RTC coach. I'll tell you that. He wasn't an RTC coach. He was the guy, though. that was at our, we'd had to have a youth practice or whatever it may be, a local practice. And, I'd be wrestling with whoever, Johnny over here. And, he would scout out who were the best guys in the room in that practice. And I had 2 home mats in my basement. We would have a practice literally right after that one. He would pick those guys and be like, all right, we're gonna go have another 2-hour practice at my house.
And he would lead it?
Oh, we did it. We did it.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I grew up. But looking back on it, man, at the time I thought he was crazy, but looking back on it now, it's just the opportunities he gave me to grow and to get better at the sport. I can't thank him enough.
Was that middle school or high school when that kind of routine would happen?
That was youth. That was all youth, middle school. It stopped when I got into high school because I had some really great coaches, like I said. But he didn't know any better, right? He didn't know how to. He got to a point where he realized he couldn't really teach too much more technique or whatever, and it was just how does he get me around better opponents and better practice partners. So very fortunate.
What was the regiment like when you were at Davison with Coach Hall? Was it just the afternoon practice and you guys would go so hard, or was there 2 a days, or what was your personal routine back then?
Honestly, it's not too far off of what our blueprint looks like in a collegiate room. Obviously the intensity level is a lot different and your daily routine's a lot different, but we were getting up before school started. Our classes started at 7:30 in the morning. So we would be in there around 6 o'clock. We would run and lift before classes started. And then we would have, school would get out at 2:30 and we would have team practice at 3 o'clock. So it was not too far off of what our college blueprint looks like. And, we went hard.
Just all the time. You think about how much the intensity levels rate. I mean, that'd be hard enough with an average room. You think about guys like yourself, Metcalf in there. I mean, that's as tough as they come, man.
It was fun. Looking back too, there were so many times our high school wrestling room, they had a set of double doors that led out into the basketball, into the gym. And I can't tell you how many times that there would be brawls and just, hard hand fighting that would lead out those doors into the basketball arena, and people are just looking at you like these guys are crazy. So
yeah, I mean, you guys come out just soaked in sweat, just cut, bloody, just, oh my God.
And the wrestling didn't stop. It didn't matter if it was on the basketball gym. It was, you went until somebody got that takedown.
Who was the big rival for Davidson back then, if there was one?
At the time, I believe my senior year, it was Rockford, but there was all kinds of teams throughout that, throughout the era. Tempest Bedford used to be really good. Grand Haven, Granville used to be really good, but I believe now that Detroit Catholic Central is kind of the team to beat in the Division I. They go back and forth with Davison now, and there's a ton of teams in Davison now, or Michigan, that are doing really well and ranked in the country.
Yeah, it's a great state for wrestling. I think the Amin family is connected to Detroit Central Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, was that the time before the national schedule, or were you guys wrestling a national schedule back then?
You know what? So there's rules within Michigan. I believe it was like 300 miles from our school doorstep. So we were limited on how far we could go. Obviously, our coaches would have been all for it. If we could have went out to the West Coast, East Coast, we would have been there. So from that, having a little bit of a handcuffed on how far we could go, I believe every year we wrestled St. Ed's and St. Paris Graham, and we went to Midland or Medina in Ohio. We would go as far as there, but we would have a lot of Illinois teams come to us, and St. Ed's would come to us, but we couldn't go farther than 300 miles. So it wasn't, we would have been in all those tournaments if we could have.
Medina's when Metcalf and Slater wrestled, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Man.
It felt like every tournament those guys were always meeting up somehow.
That's a fun one. That match is online, luckily, and that's a fun one to watch. You think about, man, just that group of guys back then. It's special to have that, but probably more so than the talent level is the culture. I mean, if you had to distill the philosophy of the Davison program, obviously something you took with you to Iowa State, something you take with you now. What were some of the core values that seemed true to that program at that time?
It's something that Coach Hall always, he has it plastered everywhere around our, the Davison program. He had it on shirts, he had it on everything. And if you know anything about the program, it was that hard-nosed, very physical guys. That was kind of the philosophy behind the program. But kind of his saying was never settle, break somebody. And that was, you took it literally, right? You took it to the point where you were taking him down, letting him go, taking him down, letting him go. And then, trying to get to the pin. So that was the mentality that we had. So I think that was something that helped, transition into college as well.
Never settle, break somebody?
Never settle, break somebody.
Dude, those basketball players got it firsthand. They got a firsthand look. And I did just want to hit on one thing about your college career. So when you got to Iowa State, was Coach Douglas or Coach Sanderson leading the team?
So kind of how my recruiting went. So I got recruited my junior and senior year out of, from Iowa State, and Bobby Douglas was the head coach, right? So he had Cale Sanderson as assistant coach, and he had actually Chris Bono as longtime assistant. So I had preliminary talks with Coach Bono, and, obviously Coach Sanderson was a huge draw for me, and I built a really, really close relationship with him, and obviously through Coach Douglas as well. So I had a ton of respect for Coach Douglas. My senior year leading to my freshman year in college, by the time I got to Ames, Iowa, that transition had happened. Cale had took over as head coach. Coach Douglas had retired. So when I got there, it was what the transition had happened. I had, Coach Douglas, I had built a really good relationship with him, and still to this day I have a great relationship with Coach Douglas. But Coach Sanderson brought in his staff, and I was very grateful for the opportunity he gave me to be a part of his team. And
did Bono come back at all during your time there?
So Bono was actually, he got the job at Tennessee Chattanooga. Fast forward, he was actually one of the candidates when Coach Sanderson went to Penn State. He was one of the final two candidates. I think him and Kevin Jackson were the final two candidates for that Iowa State head coaching job. Mm-hmm. So when Coach Jackson got the job, he brought in Coach Bono as his top assistant. And that's kind of where me and Coach Bono built our relationship, and kind of really where we cut our teeth as far as, just how close we got, and just the coach, he was amazing for me.
And so that was your senior year. You had a different coach, right?
So it was my junior year, actually.
Junior
so
year.
I had 3 years with Coach Sanderson and his staff, and then I had 2 years with Coach Jackson.
So perfect. Okay, so what I want to get at was, Coach Hall from Davidson seems like typical Iowa style, just outwork everybody, out-tough everybody. Was that different than the Coach Sanderson approach when you were there?
No, I think it was a lot of the same. I think if you watch Coach Sanderson compete, I don't think it's necessarily that vocal. I think it's a different way of expressing it. But if you watch Coach Sanderson and the way he competed, he was breaking guys. He was absolutely breaking guys by his technical, the skills that he was, that he had, and just the way he competed, and he made it look easy. So from that standpoint, he wasn't the type of guy who was gonna, yell down your throat and tell you to do this, do that, do this, and that kind of a motivator. But he was a guy who was just very calm, and he was great for me, because I was the kind of guy who was anxious and I was ready to get on the mat, all the time. So he was a great resource for me, and a different perspective. And then fast forward to Coach Jackson, it was a completely different staff with that as well. And talk about, just a very fundamentally sound guy in Coach Jackson, and bringing in a guy like Coach Bono, who couldn't be more similar to the way I live my life, and just the way we think of things and how intense we are. And so naturally we attracted to each other. And, I always say this, the old saying, like people say, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. And for me, I'm a big time guy with relationships, and Bono was that guy. So when he came in, it was a breath of fresh air for me. And luckily we were close in weight, so we got a chance to train with each other as well.
I wouldn't say you're that close in weight, but Coach Bono must be wrestling up here.
So I actually came into college as a 57 pounder. So okay. I was at 157, and he, if you believe it or not, if you look at some old photos and stuff with Coach Bono, he was thick.
Thick.
That dude, he was thick. And,
oh my God. When he wore that red USA singlet, he wore it in the Midlands finals when he beat TJ Williams one year. The announcers, I was like in middle school when I watched this, they kept calling him the fire plug. And to this day, whenever I see him in that red singlet, I'm like, that guy is a fire plug, because he is jacked.
He is. He absolutely is. And so I got a chance to really, compete with him and learn from him. So he was my guy that it didn't matter what time of the day it was. We were going to make sure we were getting our work in, and, he motivated me.
Yeah, he told me, when I talked to him, that literally there's no, like, he doesn't set his time. He doesn't set a time to go to bed, like 10 o'clock. Gotta go to bed at 10. He's like, I'll go to bed when all my guys are done being helped. If that's 1 a.m, it's 1 a.m. You know, it's like there is no end of the day for me. And it seems like that was distilled to you at Iowa State.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't matter when it is. It's just you go until it's done, right? That's kind of our philosophy here in our coaching staff. And there's obviously going to be tasks that we need to do daily. It's just you do whatever it takes to get it done, and however long it takes, you go until it's done.
Let me ask you this, because I love that mentality, and I think I have that in a way about this podcast. How do you find, or how do you have the conversation with your spouse where it's like, hey, I'm not going to be around all the time in the season? Not even how do you have the conversation, but what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously during the season, you're gone a lot, probably even more in the off season. Does that ever come up, or did it ever come up for you and Coach Bono?
You know, talking about it from the spouse standpoint, I'm very lucky, and I can speak for both Coach Bono and I, just being as close as we are to his family. We are very lucky to have the wives that we do. I think all Division I coaches and every coach out there is very, very lucky. You know, it takes a certain sacrifice to do what we do, and we're not always going to be home. You know, especially our hours are going to be a little bit different daily. No 2 days are the same, and it takes a great deal of just sacrifice and understanding that this is important. And luckily for us, it's important for our wives as well and our families. And this is it's intertwined in who we are as our families. And we're lucky to have them, two wives that understand that.
It's just such a big piece of it that I never thought about when I was younger, and I'm just starting to think about it now. And I'm just like, man, what a big sacrifice, you know, like for everyone involved. And it's cool that, you know, if they're intertwined with it, that makes sense, but you don't think about that a lot, you know, and it's a big piece of it.
Absolutely. And right now, you know, I talked to Coach Bono about this too. It's just, I feel like we're stealing time right now, right? With all this quarantine time, you know, I'm usually out the door at 4:30, right? I'm opening up the arena at 5 and making sure that the guys are, you know, when they walk into the arena, the music's on. I'm setting the stage for those guys when they arrive, right? And usually I'm not home until 7, so I'm leaving the house at 4:30 before my family's up. And my kids are young, so they're usually going to bed around 6:30 right now. So there's many nights where I don't see them. Not that that's an excuse, but or whatever. It's just that's just the way it is. And luckily we got a wives that understand that. And right now with this whole quarantine thing, it's been nice to be able to see my kids, you know, all day, and they're hanging on me, and, you know, we're playing hide and go seek in the house, and all kinds of fun stuff, and just getting creative, letting these guys have fun. So
when you're during the season though, you're up that early though, out the door, huh?
Every day. And that doesn't change even if we're out of season. I'm out the door at that time. It's just, like I said, I'm a creature of habit. I like sticking to my routine, and you know, I get up early, I get to the office, and the first thing first, I get in the sauna and then get my workout in. And usually, you know, in the off season, I'm getting my workouts in before those guys, just, you know, so I'm there for them when they're there. Yeah.
What is and then we'll wind down here, but what is the off season like for your guys if it's normal? Like if we're back rolling, are you on the mat? Like let's say it's mid-April. Are you on the mat 5 days a week and working out 5 days a week? What's it look like for you guys?
Yeah, so as soon as season's done, we transition right into our regional training center, and we have a fully funded regional training center. Ben Askren is our head coach of our regional training center, so we're very fortunate to have Coach Askren involved in our program, and it's completely transformed our regional training center. But from a scheduling standpoint, as soon as we transfer into our regional training center, it's you know, we do a lot of technical work, right? We slow things down. It's not necessarily the grind that it is during the season. Because we'll get back to that, you know, very shortly, right? It feels like the summer will fly by and we'll be right back into preseason, and then you're back into that weekly Big Ten grind. So we slow things down from that standpoint. You know, in a typical year, we're getting ready for certain competitions, so we will gear it up and ramp it up for certain competitions. But right now, we slow it down. We get in the weight room, we start packing on that size, that strength, and that foundation that's going to lead us into the season. And we make sure these guys are nutritionally on point, and it's going to lead them into that preseason. So we're on the mat, I would say probably 3 times a week, no more than that. You know, obviously these guys are in there as much as they want, but it's a lot of fundamental work. It's a lot of really working on, you know, the fundamentals, defending your legs, and just working on areas that we we think we need to work on, and things that we made notes on during the season.
And what about like mindset training or visualization? Do you believe in that? And do you have a philosophy around that for your guys?
Absolutely. We actually have a lot of what they call here at Wisconsin, they call them mindfulness coaches. And we have a great resource and within our department. Chad McGahee does a fantastic job. He's a part of our support staff. He meets with our guys. And what we found is you either like it or you don't, right? There's going to be guys that don't like it, and guys that, some guys that love it. And I was the type of guy that loved it in my career. And I believed it was a big part of my success was being able to visualize and being there before it ever happened. But certainly we make sure that those guys have it available to them. And it's not required. It's not mandatory, but it is there as a resource.
That's cool that I didn't even know they had that. I mean, you've always heard the term sports psychologist, but that can be a little intimidating. It's like, why would I go to a psychologist? Nothing wrong, but it's not even that. It's everyone says wrestling's 90% mental at the D1 level, and you spend 90% of your time with the physical training. Why not spend some time with the mental training? Absolutely.
I think mental is so important. And looking back on my own career, I wish I would have known these things. I wish I would have been smarter in my own approach to things from an early age. I didn't really learn these things until I was a senior in college, right? I didn't really get exposed to visualization and being able to that mental talk. It was just usually just grind it through, and that was kind of the way I thought of things. And I didn't get exposed to that until, my senior year with Coach Kevin Jackson. He was a big time believer in that when he trained his senior level athletes at the Olympic Training Center. So he brought those philosophies to me, and I really absorbed those. And I try to teach those to our guys. And then we get to Wisconsin and they have, 5 or 6 full-time employees that's all they do with all sports is mindfulness coaching and different areas that people struggle within athletics. So it's been a great resource for our guys, and they love it.
Man, can you imagine going through your whole career and not getting that until your senior year? That's pretty wild. It was pretty taboo back then.
It was, and when you think back on it, talking to yourself before a match, what is that, right? And luckily I had a lot of good resources, that positive talk around me, but it was, how did I do that? And how did I suppress those demons before I walked onto the mat in my own head, right? Mm-hmm. In your own thoughts. And when you're sleeping at night before a tournament, what are you telling yourself? How are you visualizing your attacks? I'm a big time believer in it. I remember my senior year multiple times after practices, I would just lay on my back, put my feet up on the wall and do 7-minute clips of where I was visualizing myself attacking my opponents, getting my hand raised, what it looked like, what it felt like, every feeling that I could, visualize, I was there, right? I had seen myself get my hand raised in the NCAA tournament millions of times before it ever happened.
And was it a specific opponent or like a faceless opponent?
It was just a faceless opponent. I was always just wrestling, a faceless opponent. It was just over and over and over, getting to my attacks, getting to the positions I wanted to be in, and visualizing success, I think, is important, right? I wasn't visualizing, the struggle. It was just the over and over repetition of getting my hand raised, scoring on a guy, getting the fall, and over. And I think that really, it strengthened my mind, so when I got to those stressful situations, I could reflect and be like, listen, I've done this a million times in my head. Let's just go do it.
And then last thing for you, because I hear the kids waking up, which is no problem at all, man. Every interview we do now, there's kids in the background. I think it's fine by me. But think about Saturday before the Nationals. Are you, like your senior year, are you visualizing then, or are you trying to have what they call empty mind at that point? Like when you're starting to get in the tunnel, you're warming up, like that kind of scene. Where are you at then?
Yeah, I think there's a fine line as far as how much you really want to, stress your mind out of the whole visualization. I kept it really, really simple and really relaxed. I think that was important for me, being a high, kind of a high strung guy, intense guy. I think the more relaxed I was, the better, but not too relaxed, if that makes sense. I think the Saturday of the tournament was just waking up, getting my weigh in. I woke up on weight. I weighed in. I watched the first round of a couple of my teammates, went back, took a nap, woke up, got a workout in, and then it was starting to gear it up for that finals match. So I tried to stay away from it as much as I possibly could that morning and just kind of be free.
And dude, when you won, one of the great all-time pictures in wrestling history, man, with the tape and the blood, it's awesome. Last thing we'll sign off with, if a kid is interested in Wisconsin and they're wondering, am I the right fit? Hit us with a couple things you look for in high school kids if they want to be a part of the Badger program. We'll sign off with that.
Well, I think first and foremost, I tell all the kids I do around the country and kids I talk to all the time is just don't let your academics dictate your future. I think that's very important. And at the University of Wisconsin, we want great student athletes, right? Obviously, this is one heck of an academic institution. So academics are very, very important to us here. So from an academic standpoint, don't let your academics, dictate your future, right? Don't think that you can just turn it on your senior year in high school and expect to be able to be admitted into a program like this. So it's going to make it difficult on you if you slack off. Be committed just like you are in the wrestling room and make sure you're taking care of what you need to. And but on top of that, we want good people, right? You could be the best wrestler in the country and be I don't want to say a terrible person, but just not the right fit for our program from a social standpoint. We want good kids that are going to represent this university on a really, really high level, and people that are going to make this community proud and be, really productive citizens.
Yeah, it's a culture fit. It's also, I know you've talked about this before, but really loving the process because you're a guy who gets up. I don't think you ever wake up and you don't want to work out. You're amazing like that, man. Maybe you have those bad days, but you seem to push through more than anyone, and certainly loving the process and loving the sport of wrestling. It's got to be on there as well. I'm sure that's a given.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. When I go to bed at night, I can't wait to wake up, right? Because I get to do it all over again. and I'm lucky to get to do what I do as a profession, and it's a lot of fun.
Love it. Coach Reader, it's always an honor to talk to you, sir. It's inspiring. I hope you have a great day. Go Badgers, baby.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Take care. And all great things must come to an end. If you want to hear more from the podcast, text WRESTLE to 555-888. That's WRESTLE to 555-888. You can also find us on Instagram, Wrestling Changed My Life, Twitter, Ryan_N_Warner, as well as our website, WrestlingChangedMyLife.com. Take care, y'all. Take care, y'all. Take care, y'all. Take care, y'all. Take care, y'all.